I'm going to be honest. I really want to get my hands on your business, and not in the way that might sound, but I do want to help. Not in a detached, listen to my podcast and hopefully you'll get some golden nuggets out of it way. I want us to work together. I want to be involved. And there are some of my programs and packages that allow us to work in that way together to really align your strategy, your actions, and your goals. So if you know that now is the time to get stuck into your business strategy, to get mentorship, support, and hand-holding, as well as practical advice and feedback, I would love for us to explore how we might be able to do that together. Whether it's joining my takeoff program to get you to the point where you are attracting leads and making sales more consistently, whether it's through the accelerator to help you really narrow in on where your leverage points are to scale your business beyond 6 figures and further, or whether it's that high touch, high connection, one-on-one experience of working together as a VIP. I invite you to send an email to me at support@tashcorbin.com. Tell me what your goals are, tell me what you need help with, and let's look at how we might be able to work together. I would love to provide the mentorship, guidance, feedback, and advice that you need to know exactly where you need to focus right now to get it implemented and done and to get your business taking off and scaling. There's no obligation and there's no hard selling. I genuinely just want to make sure that I'm across what's going on for you and that you know what the options are for us to potentially be working together. And of course, if I have free resources that might be able to support you, I will point you in the direction of those as well. So get in touch, send that email to support@tashcorbin.com, and I really look forward to hearing from you. So I've got a theory to share with you in today's episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. I'm not sure I'd call it a conspiracy theory, but I do feel like maybe there's a bigger picture we're all not seeing when it comes to mindset for business owners. It's going to take a little bit to explain, so I'm just going to call this episode I've Got a Theory About Mindset for Business Owners, and we're just going to dive in and unpack it. So this is episode number 523 of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast, which means you can find all the relevant links and the show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/523. Let's jump in. I've got a theory. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money, and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Now, this theory starts with something I already shared on a previous podcast episode, which is an observation that I feel like when I started my business in 2013, everyone worked with a mindset practitioner. It felt like that was one of the most critical things that everyone identified was needed as a business owner, and especially if you're in the startup stages of your business. And one of the reasons why I feel like, especially in that 2012, 2013 kind of period, everyone had mindset practitioners and everyone was so on board with this being a necessary part of starting a business was that in those years, business ownership and business strategy was far simpler and it was far more straightforward. We had less options available to us when it came to platforms. We also had less free options available to us in tech tools and those sorts of things. And so when the strategic options that were available to you were very limited by the technology of the day and your budget, if you weren't following through on your work, if you weren't doing those very core basic things that everyone needed to do, then ultimately it was far easier to spot that you had a mindset block that was coming up for you. It was far easier to see what you were resisting and where you were resisting, or the fact that you were in resistance at all, because with those limited strategy options, you couldn't kind of tie yourself up in knots and run around in circles, jumping from strategy to strategy. We didn't get freaked out and overthinking about whether we were running a webinar or whether we were doing a 5-day challenge or whether we were doing a pre-recorded webinar or whether we were doing a video sales letter or whether we were doing an ebook, because all of those options weren't actually common. Most people just ran webinars, and webinars was the easiest, the most simple, and the most straightforward. The only webinar platform that was available to us was GoToWebinar, which was $197 a month. So in order to run your webinar, you needed to be bringing in at least $197 every single month. And so it also forced our hand to actually get out there and get some paying clients. Because if you were paying $197 a month for GoToWebinar every month and you weren't at least getting one client to be able to pay for that expense, you very quickly needed to either fix your strategy and get it sorted as to why are people not buying from me, or recognize that this was a mindset issue and people weren't buying from you because there was something going on between your ears, or you quit and you were gone. The barrier to entry was still very low compared to pre-internet business days, but it was slightly higher, especially in the maintaining and sustaining the business. These days, you can run a business for $0 a month if you work really hard at it. And I would also argue that in order to run a business for $0 a month, you spread yourself across so many different platforms and different strategies that it can be harder to spot where you've got mindset stuff coming up for you. It's harder to know, is this a problem because I'm on the wrong platform, or is this a problem because I've got a mindset issue? Is this a problem because my messaging isn't clear enough, or is this a mindset issue? And so the default belief of everyone, even back then, was that if something in their business wasn't working, there was likely a part of their strategy that wasn't working. But it was also clear that we knew what we needed to do. And so if you weren't doing it, that was a surefire sign there was something coming up for you in relation to mindset. And also, most people's results were fairly consistent at that time based on the work that they were putting in. So if you ran a webinar, everyone talked about the 3% conversion rule of webinars. So if you get 100 people to sign up for a webinar, 3 of them will buy something from you if it's under $1,000. That was a generally understood ratio. And so if you ran a webinar and you hadn't had 100 people sign up for it, you had to run it again and get 100 people signed up for it. And so people were just far more disciplined. And by discipline, I mean like that focus and just like, how do I make this work? Rather than, oh, I only got 32 people signed up to my webinar. Maybe I should run a 5-day challenge instead. Oh, I only got 21 people signed up to my webinar. Maybe I need to start a $29 online course. We couldn't do that. We didn't have the luxury or the privilege or the opportunity to do that unless you had a web developer on tap that you could afford to pay. And actually, when I think about the people I started my business with, when I was in programs or people that I met online, upon reflection, when I look at the people who started their business with a lot of money, they were often the ones who took the longest to get their business working and to get clients. And I think part of the reason for that was they had more strategy options available to them. Limiting your strategy options means you figure it out faster. And so my theory is that this whole concept of strategic simplicity isn't just the key to nailing your foundations quickly and building a viable, consistently income-generating business. It's also the key to identifying mindset blocks and barriers. And in that, you're far more likely to engage the appropriate support and interventions when you embrace strategic simplicity as a core fundamental principle of your business strategy. The other part of this theory that I have been pondering a lot recently is why people were so quick to sign up with mindset practitioners back in 2013, 2014. And I think one of the factors there was actually that mindset practitioners didn't sound like snake oil salespeople. And the reason for that is because mindset practitioners back in 2013, 2014 weren't promising larger and larger sums of money as a result of working with them seemingly overnight. There especially has been since COVID, so like 2020, 2021, there has been a proliferation of money mindset practitioners online and a lot of mindset practitioners online. And it feels like they're jockeying for position to be the mindset practitioner that helps you to make the most money. And there was one little exception to this back in 2013, and that was in the EFT practitioner circles. And I wonder if anyone who's around at this time remembers this, but back in 2013, 2014, it felt like most people were trying out emotional freedom technique or EFT. It was really getting quite popular. It was in its early kind of days of people becoming qualified practitioners. A lot of kinesiologists were also EFT practitioners. Reiki healers were getting trained up in EFT. And it was in the heyday of EFT when here in Australia on the Gold Coast, Dr. Peter Stapleton, she was doing a lot of research on EFT at Bond University, and they were releasing a lot of research around like brain scans and MRIs of like what is the actual nervous system effect of EFT and why is it so effective. And this was coupled with what I would call the EFT content creator battle of 2013, in which Brad Yates and the Ortners, Nick and Jess Ortner, were kind of the celebrities of the EFT world. And I remember on YouTube, it was probably early 2014, Brad Yates released a video tapping for $50,000. And so this video went viral on YouTube, and I know dozens of people who would tap with Brad Yates every day with his tapping for $50,000 video. And then Jess and Nick Ortner released tapping for a six-figure breakthrough, and their video started to go viral. And then Brad Yates released tapping for I think it was tapping for $100,000. And then Nick and Jess Ortner did tapping to go from six figures to multi-six figures. And then there was a tapping for $1 million year. And like it would just felt like we're just tapping for bigger and bigger amounts of money, right? And for anyone who is an EFT practitioner or a mindset practitioner who understands like the cognitive dissonance that comes when like you're struggling to pay your electricity bill, but you're tapping for $1 million. Like the effectiveness of it isn't better because the amount is bigger. And we know this from a lot of research around psychology. But anyway, at the time, that was probably the equivalent of what we then saw in 2020 with this new wave of TikTok creators and younger content creators who were in the mindset space, the money mindset space, and they almost were sharing more and more audacious, more and more escalating promises of what could be fixed simply by doing mindset stuff and aligning your mindset, aligning energetically. And what I think has happened in that period is because content became shorter and shorter form, our attention spans were shorter and shorter. The promises got bigger and bigger. The video length got shorter and shorter. The explanations of how this actually worked and what is the process of expanding your mindset to have greater capacity for abundance was getting less and less explained. And so mindset practitioners in short form content started to sound like snake oil salespeople. And it didn't help that we were also seeing more and more really out of the box ways that people were talking about healing their relationship with money. Like I remember one day scrolling TikTok and seeing a reel of people twerking as they had money sprayed at them out of one of those money guns, and they were on a money mindset retreat. And this was a way that they were healing their relationship with money by dancing sexily with actual money. And let me say, if that worked, power to them, yeah? But we had so many of these types of creators and types of offerings that were flooding our feeds, and it started to make mindset work feel far more out of the box and a little bit of this like snake oil kind of feeling. So in 2020, we had almost like this perfect storm of things that were happening around COVID. So the market in terms of buyers was flooded because we had so many people more prolifically online and consuming content. And so people were making a lot more money online. They were making far more sales of things like online courses and short courses and live online events, way more than we'd ever seen before, because it was like social media went from something that people glanced at occasionally, especially people in jobs, to something that people were looking at for hours and hours a day. And so think about it as like the billboard that you drive past at full speed every day versus being stuck in traffic in front of that one billboard for 6 hours. And so because we were flooded with customers into the online space, more people were able to make online businesses work, and more businesses were making a lot more money. And so it was like this Bermuda Triangle, right? It was like perfect storm situation. We had shorter form content and people talking about more and more extreme and out of the box ways that they had sorted their money mindset. Some of that was resulting in them actually making a lot more money, but it was a combination of having far more potential clients consuming their content online. And we saw greater and greater claims and greater results that people were talking about as well. Plus, in 2020, tools in terms of starting an online business and trying lots of different strategies became far cheaper and more prolific as well. So it wasn't just the content creators who were home more and creating more content for the internet, and it wasn't just the consumers of content who were home more and consuming more of that content. We also had all our tech geeks were home more and had more time to work on their little side projects. And so we saw more and more online course platforms. We saw more and more online web hosting options available. We saw more social platforms. We saw more types of content. Because of TikTok's proliferation, YouTube really started pushing Reels. And because Reels were working really well on Instagram, and we had YouTube Shorts, and then we also saw Facebook Lives doing really well when everyone was home during COVID, and then live content consumption started to slowly go down as everyone went back to work. So then short form video then proliferated over onto Facebook. And so it's just like all of these things came together. And the result of all of those things coming together was that we saw more and more extreme examples of what mindset work was. Mindset work was being simplified down to just feel abundant. Just feel like you're the money magnet goddess that you know you are. Just reconnect with your soul's understanding that you are meant to be this rich, abundant person. Twerk with your money, defecate on your money, right? All of these things we were seeing as you just need to feel good about money and everything will be okay. And so it was all simplified right down to something that then it felt like the equivalent, I would say, is the South Park episode with the underpants gnomes. It's like step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, step 3, profit, right? So it was like step 1, twerk while money is thrown at you. Step 2, step 3, $50,000. And so because of this combination of mindset work, it was almost like we had this resurgence of the let's everyone tap for 50K with Brad Yates. And by the way, that video isn't on the internet anymore, but hundreds and hundreds of EFT practitioners have recorded their version of tapping for $50,000. So if you go and Google like tapping for $50,000, you will find so many tapping for $50,000 videos, right? But what happened with the whole Brad Yates thing was it just escalated and escalated and escalated and it fizzed out. And people were like, right, the whole point of doing EFT is actually to calm the amygdala, get out of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and think clearly to know what is the logical reason that my brain is finding for this not to feel safe for me. Now I need to do the actual work of unpacking and clearing that out. And so that part was lost in the escalation in the tapping wars of 2013, 2014. And then we saw that reignite and happen again in 2020 and 2021. But the thing that came together with that was the proliferation of the online platforms being readily available, cheap and free. I mean, AppSumo in 2021 was just flooded with all of these buy once lifetime deals of different tools and different platforms and different ways that you could establish yourself in an online business and create content and da-da-da, right? So we had all of that happening at once. Plus, because there were far more consumers available to us and we did have far more eyeballs on us, the results that people were getting from twerking with money, I don't know about that in particular, but like from that equivalent of mindset work were actually there. People were attributing their success in making more money to these. What I did was I just thought about money and I felt good feelings and everything worked out and I made millions of dollars, right? But it underestimates the role that the environment and the market played in those results. And then now that we have seen significant economic contraction, a lot of people who got caught up in that movement are now recognizing that perhaps the just feeling good about money isn't a sustainable way to actually transmute their lived experience and overcome some of the financial crises that they might be facing now. We've had people who never really got into that because it looked weird and whimsical and couldn't possibly work and they really mistrusted it from the start. They have sort of more of a keeping mindset stuff at arm's length. Like there's a lot more discernment around what constitutes effective strategy and what will actually make a difference. And I think a lot of people have just tarred all mindset work with the same brush. There have also been a lot of exposés of some of the people who were claiming to be making millions of dollars at this time, not making nearly as much as they had claimed. And also some of the client successes have been revealed to have been faked, either because the client doesn't exist or the client faked their success because they knew that they would be platformed. And so then they were saying, yeah, I had a $250,000 a month after working with this person, because they knew that then they would be spotlight. They would be showcased on that person's socials, and then that would actually make them more money. But we also had people teaching how to fake like your Stripe results and make pictures of like your income increasing. At first I remember seeing it. I was in a program and someone said, oh, I wish I had been using Stripe as my payment processor, because I made 10K in the first month and 20K in the second month and 50K in the third month. And the person who was like the leader of this space was like, oh, we can whip that up for you. And they literally just made like a fake, here's my results in Stripe image, and gave it to the student. And then the provider used that in their testimonials to say, look, this is my student's Stripe thing. But all of us who were in that call knew that it was fake. And the only thing we have to go on that the person did have those results was literally they just mentioned it in a call. Like, I'm not saying that I don't believe them, but like, I don't believe the image because I saw it faked in front of me on the screen. And the final piece of all of this coming together was that I also saw the people who had the really solid mindset stuff ended up kind of withdrawing from the space. 2022, 2023, 2024, some of my favorite mindset specialists repositioned themselves as business strategists, or they repositioned themselves in a different way to kind of separate themselves from this, I'm going to call it the twerk for your money group, right? Because it's the most visual and visceral example I can think of every time I think of it, right? So the twerk for your money peeps made the really consistently effective and diligent and qualified mindset peeps want to distance themselves as far as they could. And so they reposition themselves in strategy, or they reposition themselves in a specific block, like healing your maternal line, or healing your relationship with your inner child, or healing your relationship with your inner critic, right? And I'm not saying that those things aren't valid. They absolutely are. And I think, people finding their space and being able to be in a space where they could feel comfortable about their content and what it was that they were sharing and what they were teaching was brilliant. And I'm glad that they are still around, but it meant that their content shrunk away. And so what I see now is a lot of those twerk for your money people no longer prolific online. Their heyday is done. They made hay while the sun shone on them. They are no longer there. Or they've sort of withdrawn to a select few very high ticket people work with them. Their content is still kind of rolling out, but, they've made their money. They can live on passive income from their investments. We do have a lot of people now, like they've then pivoted into how to make passive income through investing. Like I've seen a few people who were money mindset, now their money strategy in like actually talking about investing, talking about, creating passive income, or they're talking about something else. And so we're actually left now in an environment where it's not so common to hear from a business owner, especially someone teaching startups or talking to people in the early stages of business, saying that working with mindset practitioners and working on mindset stuff is a really critical part of it. We're also not hearing, because it's not such a common practice to have a mindset practitioner you're working with, we're not hearing from other peers who are in the early stages of business that this is the mindset person that I'm working with. For all of the eye rolling that Tapping for 50K with Brad Yates elicited from me, he did a very good job of bringing EFT to feel like it was more mainstream, get people excited to try it out. And then some of the more rigorous EFT practitioners were getting clients, right? So, it does need to become popular, just like I think we have the secret to thank for some of my favorite practical manifesting people, Denise Duffield Thomas being one of them. And so, those people who took mindset work and built out a rigorous process around it for their specific niche, absolutely spectacular to be able to access them. But these days we don't hear about that so much. I also think that the number of people doing qualifications in those areas and graduating and going, right, I'm a qualified EFT practitioner. Now I'm going to go out there and get some clients online. I just don't see them kind of surging onto the market the way that they used to. Similar with other modalities. I remember, I think it was 2016, 2017, there were, I would say, probably 50 or 60 people within the Heart Centered community who were helping people with their mindset through journaling and literally offering one-on-one journaling sessions with people. And I think part of the reason why we're not seeing so many people offering these services, we're not seeing so many practitioners come out, is people are less likely to actually go and pursue a qualification. Now that we're in economic contraction, people are less likely to be able to afford. I remember a basic coaching qualification in 2013 was $5,000 to $10,000. And, people aren't investing that these days because starting an online business has been sort of made out to be something you can do absolutely free. And also people think that the first step to creating an online business is being a content creator, and they can do that for free. There's lots of people who teach you how to create content. There's lots of people teaching you how to do Instagram strategy. And so the rigor around how you deliver your service or feeling like you've got a modality that you can lean on is sort of fading away. And then where it's just not as normalized to be working with a mindset practitioner the way that it was back in 2013, 2014. And the final piece of all of this is to say that for a lot of people, I think part of the reason why they take so long to figure it out is also because it's very easy to convince yourself that the problem is your strategy when instead of having 4 strategy models to choose from, there are 485,000 strategy models to choose from. And so if you're not getting traction with a Facebook page, it's very easy these days to be convinced by someone, no, you need to start a group. And so you start a group and the group doesn't get traction. It's like, no, you need to be doing ads. And you start ads and the ads aren't doing very well. So then they say, no, you need to turn your personal profile into a creator profile and friend request 5,000 people over the course of 100 days. And so they do that and then they friend request all these people and they're still not making money. Not once have they actually stopped to think, could it be that the reason why I'm not getting traction with any of, and this is all on one platform, all Facebook strategy, could it be that the reason why I'm not getting traction with what I'm trying to do on Facebook is because I'm not seeing it through long enough? And I'm also not understanding the role that my mindset plays when I am showing up in these platforms. So strategic simplicity is gone. The normalization of working with mindset practitioners, gone. The prompts of what you're witnessing yourself do or not do, gone. The trust and faith and belief in rigorous process around mindset, gone. And so we see more and more people continue to flail and struggle and not be able to figure this out. And they're also far more susceptible to people online saying, oh, you need a low ticket offer. No. You need a membership because you only have to sell it once and you get paid every month forever. Subscription is the way to go. No, you need high ticket, right? So we see people who teach a very valid strategy, right? High ticket, great. Low ticket, great. Membership model, great. Is it for everyone? No. Is it the reason you're not making money? No. It's not your model. For most people, it's a combination of you've got far too much strategic complexity and you're not doing the things that you know that you should do. And instead of seeing that I'm not doing what I know I should do as a mindset issue, you're instead labeling it as something else. You're labeling it as, oh, I'm resisting doing that blogging consistently because I shouldn't be doing blogging. I should be doing short form video. Oh, I'm resisting doing sales conversations with potential one-to-one clients because I shouldn't be doing sales conversations. I should be writing sales pages. I should be doing video sales letters. I should be doing webinars that are automated with email funnels. I should see how, there's so many options strategically that you could try every strategy. You could change your strategy every month for 10 years and never actually come to the conclusion that maybe it's not my strategy. Maybe it's not that I need to be adding something else to my to-do list. Maybe I knew that I needed to run the same webinar 3 times in a row, but when the first one didn't go so well, I got so derailed by that and I made it mean so many things about my worthiness, my sense of self, my self-confidence, that instead of running a webinar again, I decided webinars don't work and went running off to find another strategy. If you came to the Heart-Centered Virtual Business Conference in February, chances are you heard me really stick it to the mindset practitioners who were in the group about showing up far more prolifically online and re-normalizing working with mindset practitioners, because I think that this is one of the biggest reasons why so many people in the online business space struggle and flail about for far too long. It's actually mindset stuff. And that is not to say that I see these people have perfect strategy. I'm not at all diminishing the importance of getting your strategy clear and refining your strategy, building strategic simplicity. Absolutely important, but in most cases, the reason why I see people not able to get to that point, not able to get their strategy working, is not because the strategy is the problem. It's because they get wobbly in the implementation and refinement process and far too quickly give up on the strategy, give up on themselves and decide they need something new. They need something different. They need to work harder. They need to do more. There must be something that they're missing. When my advice would be the thing that's missing is you don't have that mindset growth and expansion nailed. You're not building your resilience here. And so at the first sign of trouble, you're giving up on your strategy too soon. So my advice to anyone who's feeling a little bit seen and heard right now, they may be feeling like, oh, wow, like I haven't worked with a mindset practitioner, or I've jumped from strategy to strategy. I keep trying to convince myself there's some magical something that's missing. I keep starting over from scratch. I keep putting barriers in between me and the thing that I want to do. My advice to you would be to start with simplifying your strategy. Pretend you are in 2013 land. And by that, I don't mean like run your business as though it's 2013, but pretend that the number of strategic options available to you is the same as it was in 2013. If I was starting my business over again today, I would pick one social platform. I'd pick Facebook. I would pick one type of feature content. I'd do podcast. And I would run a webinar every single month without fail. And then my number one strategy to get as many clients as I could would be to offer sessions one-on-one with people, either for free or at a very, very low price, so that I could learn exactly what's going on for my niche, exactly what it is that they need, and generate dozens of leads every single month by working with people. That would be my strategy. And everything else would be a bonus, or it would be pushed away until that was nailed. It is ultimately the one-to-one client attraction process at its simplest and at its best. So my advice to you is embrace strategic simplicity. Now, that version of strategic simplicity is for people in startup. If you are further along in business, you're already booked out one-on-one, don't do that. Your version of strategic simplicity would be different. If you are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year already, you're probably not even listening to this podcast episode, but if you are, what is your version of strategic simplicity? Where are you spreading yourself thin? Where are you telling yourself the problem is the strategy when you're not even sure it is the strategy? And where can you take away strategies that are not proven, that are not specific to your business, and that could be blurring the vision of what is actually the problem, where the growth opportunities might be. So embrace strategic simplicity and set yourself a specific results goal. If your specific results goal is $5,000 months every month, that's your result that you're looking for. Your job is not to find 11 billion different ways you could bring in some money. Your job is to find your fastest path to that amount. And by embracing strategic simplicity, having explicitly clear results goals that you are aiming for, you will know whether you're doing the things you set out to do or not. And you would also have insight as to the effectiveness of whether they're working. And you would also have deep insights into where you're not doing what you said you were going to do, where you feel like you're not showing up fully, where you feel like you're creating barriers to the thing that you said you were going to do, right? By embracing strategic simplicity and by embracing a clear and defined results goal that feels very doable for you if you just did what you said you were going to do, and finding your most straightforward, most direct pathway there, we can get rid of all of this complexity that is muddying the water. And then if you feel wobbly about your strategy, you've got a mindset issue because you haven't seen the strategy through. If you are like, oh my gosh, I chose Facebook, a podcast, running a webinar every month and offering $50 sessions, and I haven't even done it for 4 weeks, but I'm starting to think I've made a mistake, you haven't made a mistake. You have a mindset issue. That is the simplest and purest way you can find it. If you decide that that's going to be your strategy, but then decide, no, I'm going to add in this and I'm going to add in that. And well, I'm not going to let go of my Instagram because I already started that. And yes, I'm going to do a podcast, but I'm also going to put it out on YouTube because, that's very important for me. And I do need to SEO my website. You have a mindset issue. You have a mindset issue. Your brain is trying to come up with 1,000 other things that you need to do because it doesn't believe that you, with this simple, straightforward strategy, are worthy of success. It doesn't believe you can create it. So would you rather keep believing you can't create this success and then find 1,000 more strategies to add? Or would you rather address the problem? The problem is you don't believe it's going to work. And as soon as you actually recognize that the mindset is the issue, you can stop asking the question, is this enough? Is this not enough? Will this work? Won't this work? And you can start going, okay, how do I make this work? How do I follow through on what I said I was going to do? How do I ensure that if I'm going to release a podcast, it is the right podcast for my audience? Refer back to last week's episode. Yeah? If you're not doing the things that you set out to do with your very simple strategy, mindset blocks. Look for where there might be reasons that you are creating barriers. If you are really struggling with things that make you feel more seen and heard, visibility block. There's a mindset block in there. If you are struggling to ask for the sale, if you are struggling to ask for people to pay you, if you are struggling to follow up on unpaid invoices, money blocks, mindset block. It's all there. The information as to what you are doing to withhold this abundance, this success, these results from yourself is readily available to you when you stop complicating your strategy. when you stop convincing yourself that there are 16 things you still haven't figured out yet. I used to talk about people who needed just one more qualification, just one more qualification. That was a very obvious sign that someone had mindset stuff going on. If you think, actually, I need to be qualified in this, I need to be qualified in that, I don't think that that is the default mindset block indicator these days, because people are less inclined to chase down further qualifications. What they're chasing down is further strategies. I need this other strategy. I need to learn how to do that strategy. I need to learn how to grow a mailing list. I need to learn how to set up funnels. I need to learn how to run 5-day challenges. I need to learn how to run a low ticket course. I need to learn how to set up a membership. If you are finding yourself deeply convinced you need to learn another marketing tactic, mindset block. You know enough based on what you hear in this podcast alone to move forward. If you are not moving forward, mindset block. If in listening to this, you're starting to think maybe you need to work with a mindset person, my advice is work with them one-on-one and find a practitioner who is hyped by the process of mindset work. What I mean by that is you need to learn to drown out the mindset practitioners who are overly focused on promising results, who are overly focused on spotlighting client outcomes, and who are instead deeply fascinated by the process of mindset. Find mindset practitioners who love to talk through how they uncover the limiting belief, who are psyched to talk about the ways that they have expanded their own understanding of mindset blocks and barriers, of upper limits. Find people who are deep in their craft and deep in their process, and they talk about that consistently. It is so easy to get caught up in the hype of all of this person's clients make millions of dollars. All of this person's clients have 50K months. This person talks about the 10K month barrier, and that's what I want. So therefore, they will inherently be able to help me with it. If all they're talking about is results and they are not talking about their process, they are not the mindset practitioner that I would recommend. Your mindset practitioner needs to have a rigorous process. It is not about sitting in a session with you, thinking about your goal and doing nothing else. It is not about sitting in session with you and telling you that they are aligning you energetically to the goal that it is that you want. You can add that in, you can layer that in. But the big mindset work that I am talking about is not just energetic, it is literal brain training. It is literally unpacking all of the ways your inner child is turning into your inner critic and telling you something is not safe, something will not work, you are not worthy, you are not enough, and clearing that junk out and replacing it with far more effective thinking techniques. And to all mindset practitioners or people who offer mindset as part of their work who are listening to this episode, please show up more prolifically online. Talk more consistently about your process. Build your own intellectual property model of what it is that you bring together for your specific niche. Stop saying your mindset modality works for everything and works on everyone, and instead get to deeply understand the specific people that you are best equipped to help, that you have a deep and powerful insight into their lived and day-to-day experiences, and speak directly to them. Speak about the tangible things that they are trying to do but are finding themselves struggling to do, and why the work that you do with them helps them to overcome that struggle and clear it out of the way. Talk about the ways that you witness and observe your ideal clients sabotaging their actions, sabotaging their visibility and avoiding visibility, sabotaging their financial results and avoiding looking at, asking for, managing their money, rather than talking about how much money they want to make. Instead, talk about what you observe are the things they are doing that is sabotaging their money results, their money actions, their money-making strategies. Talk about your process of how you help people to not just have their first 10K month, but actually what is it that you did, what is it that you unlocked, what is it that you resolved that allowed them to embrace their very strategic approach, their simplified strategy, so that contributed to the result. I wish we didn't live in this space and timeline where the work of mindset practitioners had been oversimplified, had been co-opted by a bunch of grifters, let's be honest, had been turned into something that felt like it wasn't real, it wasn't tangible, it wasn't effective. I wish we weren't in this space, but the reality is that we are. And so your role as a mindset practitioner needs to be embracing process-based messaging and really getting your process messaging and content out online as consistently and effectively as possible. And the best thing I recommend for mindset practitioners is tangible niching. Niching to a specific person and speaking to their tangible lived experiences and how your process helps to break through that lived experience and have them experiencing something different, something very specifically different. Whew. So thank you for letting me extrovert this theory that I have about mindset for business owners, why I see that it has really shrunk away from some of the conversations that we have, why it is less normalized that people work with a mindset practitioner at all times, how the mindset industry may have actually been subverted in a little way, and that's contributed to this, but also how strategic complexity is also part of the problem, and the vast amount of options that are available to us strategically can actually delay us understanding the importance of mindset work and the power of mindset work in helping us to actually generate amazing results. I understand it, went off in a few different angles, but hopefully that all comes together in a powerful way for you to recognize that your job as a business owner is embracing strategic simplicity and recognizing the role of mindset first, right? Mindset first, mindset first. Whenever someone says to me, I'm thinking about changing my strategy, I'm thinking about going from Facebook to Instagram, my first question is why? And if there is a skerrick of insight in that why, that there is something that's not real, right? So a lot of people will say, I just think maybe more of my audience is over on Instagram. That is not a good enough reason. That is not a good enough reason. That is a mindset wobble. You're wobbly on your strategy because of your mindset, not you're wobbly on your strategy because of a very real and tangible data-driven analysis that tells you, I need to be over on Instagram. You've heard from someone that younger people are more likely to be on Instagram. You've thought, maybe I want to work with younger people. It's all theories and assumptions and, just hearsay and gossip and rumors. If you are falling for gossip and rumors, mindset. Mindset. It's not a strategy issue. We can make any strategy work, but the strategy doesn't work unless you work it, and you're not going to work it efficiently and sufficiently if you have got a wobbly mindset. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. If you would like to dive into this strategic simplicity, dealing with the mindset stuff, and really understanding where you may be holding yourself back, where you may be experiencing action blocks, visibility blocks, money blocks, mindset blocks. One of the things that I do, one of the events that I facilitate that really helps you to clarify this, to get to strategic simplicity and to start working on the mindset piece as well, is the Biz Boost event that I run at the end of May. It is coming up on the 24th of May, 25th of May in 2026. If you are listening to this podcast episode before then and you are not enrolled, I would recommend that you enroll in it. And mindset practitioners, if you are not enrolled, I am going to be in that event banging on about mindset stuff. Highly recommend that you come and join us. I'll make sure the link to BizBoost is over with the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/523, because I really, truly believe this conversation is going to be one of our breakthrough conversations in 2026. I'll be talking about this through different angles and with more strategy, more clarity, more specificity in future podcast episodes, because this is me presenting the broader theory. What I need to now do is get into the process. And that is what I'm going to be doing in this podcast. So if you're excited by this concept of strategic simplicity, clarity of mindset, get your money, this is what the conversation is mostly going to be here in the Heart Centered Business Podcast as we move forward. But I'm going to be going into that strategy with far more specificity and from slightly different angles each time to ensure that we have got this nailed for you, because I do see this as the thing everyone I'm talking to needs to understand and to actually embed as a principle of the way that they build their business, regardless of whether they're just starting out, they are 6 years in making $100,000, they are multi-million-dollar business owners who have seen their business shrink down to a $500,000 a year business in the last 4 years. I have clients in all of those areas. And in every single case, strategic simplicity is imperative, and it's something a lot of people struggle with. Mindset is imperative, and a lot of people don't even see it as a mindset issue. And bringing those things together to build momentum and deal with the growth issues that they're facing is critical. And so that is the conversation I shall be leading. I'm really grateful that it is a fire horse year in Chinese astrology, because I also think that with the fire horse, one of the things that it reveals is how scattered you feel when you don't have clarity, when you don't have focus. And I think stepping into the fire horse year, when I was talking about this early in 2026 and late in 2025, a lot of people thought they had strategic simplicity. They thought they had clarity and focus. But the fire horse year, the energy of this year, has revealed just how broadly spread they are, how much they've strung themselves out, and how much they have wobbles about a lot of different components of their strategy and they didn't even realize. In the tarot, it's like the chariot, right? It's like the chariot is taken off and it's got a wobbly wheel. And actually, you've got 4 horses and none of them are running in the same direction. And it's just pulling your chariot apart and you're going nowhere fast. And I think this has been revealed for a lot of people. So I feel like this year, when I've led this conversation with people, they've been far more open to it and it's landed far more effectively. I think that's because I've been talking about it a lot more and I'm practicing how I express it and I'm talking about it through lots of different lenses, i.e. I am living my message of you must create and share content in order to create good content and in order for that content to land and resonate with your audience. But I also think it's part of the energy of this year as well. So come and join us in BizBoost. Link is at tashcorbin.com/523. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. And until then, I cannot wait to see you shine.